For every beloved map in Siege, there's always one that's hated by everyone, starting with one of Siege's most confusing maps ever made, which is Tower. Now, despite being released as early as Year 2 Season 4, Tower is still one of the most hated maps to this day. Now, to be fair, this map hasn't seen any notable reworks that would make it much better than it was on release, but it's no excuse for just how bad this map is. But why is this map so bad? Well, when you're looking at a map, you have to think about two very important factors. The first being how much room do defenders have to roam, and the second being how much safe space do attackers have to get inside of the building in the first place. If the answer to both of these questions is either too much or too little, you have an unbalanced map on your hands. Let's take Skyscraper for example. Skyscraper in Pro League is historically the most defender-sided map in the scene, with it having over an 80% defender win rate at some point. Sure, it's a small map, so defenders don't really have a lot of space to roam, but there's almost no places for attackers to safely enter the building, making it very difficult to attack. Now let's take a look at the map Clubhouse. Clubhouse is one of the most balanced maps in the game. Roamers have a lot of space to roam, but not so much that attackers have to spend 2 minutes clearing it like on Lair. There's also plenty of safe spaces for attackers to enter the building from, meaning that overall, the map is balanced. And now, let's get back to Tower. Tower is a map that is so unbalanced, it will make you laugh. First of all, roamers have way too much space to run around and roam. Considering it's a map only in casual game modes, no one has the coordination to roam clear either, making it even harder to hunt anyone down. The crazy part is that even with all of this space, there's still no safe space for attackers to enter. You either have to drop into an empty elevator platform in the middle of the map where every defender will be looking, or you have to rappel into a window next to all of the roamers. This makes the map laughably defender-sided, and because of the sheer size of the map, even when you're on defense, it's hard to even find a fight in the first place, making it not even fun to play. Not to mention, the site designs are also terrible. Every site on the map has way too many exterior soft walls, meaning there's zero chance you're going to be able to keep every wall closed with electricity, or even have the reinforcements to be able to close the walls in the first place. But what if you never had to worry about opening or closing walls? Well, that's exactly the case with the most loved map in Rainbow Six Siege, which is House. House is the first map ever made in Siege, and because of that, it's not actually that balanced of a map. The reason that this map is so loved, though, has nothing to do with the balancing. There's a certain nostalgia attached to House that most OG Siege players have. The reason for this is because it's one of the older maps, but also one of the maps you play when you're new to the game, when you're just getting into Siege and fusing the hostage on accident, or when you don't even know where to plant the bomb or how. And before jynxzi popularized the 1v1 custom games on Oregon, House was where the beef was settled, which is another reason why House is so loved by the Siege community. It's a map where you can just turn your brain off and that you don't have to try on. It's a map that you can reminisce on as well after having a long day of losing elo to cheaters. That is not at all the case though for the next most hated map on this list, which is Stadium Alpha. Now, Stadium Alpha is hated for a lot of reasons, but it's actually not necessarily for the balancing. Although don't get me wrong, that is still a massive issue. Instead, the first glaring issue with this map is that it's just a rip-off of two other maps combined into one. First of all, the top floor is just the top floor of pre-reworked Oregon, just lazily retextured with some bulletproof glass in between. The bottom floor is also just a remaster of the pre-reworked Herford Base as well. More on Herford Base later, because Stadium Alpha ripping off two maps isn't the only thing that makes this map so hated. It's also the big panels of bulletproof glass that you can find sporadically around the map. These big windows of glass around the map are completely indestructible, but also completely see-through. This is a huge issue because it means that attackers can set a drone outside of the glass and defenders can't counter that drone at all unless they run outside the building and shoot the drone, or if they accidentally bring observation blockers. But observation blockers can't stop actual players from peeking behind the glass either, which was another thing that attackers could do. On that note, when this map was first introduced, observation blockers weren't even a thing. Overall, the map was unoriginal, lazy, hard on the eyes like jynxzi's forehead, and completely unbalanced. This is in stark contrast to the next most loved map in Siege, which is Clubhouse. Clubhouse is actually seen as one of, if not the most balanced map in Siege, which is the main reason as to why it's so loved. The reason as to why the map is so balanced, I already explained earlier, so I won't waste your time with that information. However, I will tell you that there are other reasons that make this map so loved. For one, every site has just the perfect amount of walls. It's enough walls to force the enemy team to run utility, and not too many walls that makes the defense completely hopeless. A map like Clubhouse that requires utility and coordination forces players to play slower and more tactically. Most players who play Siege enjoy this playstyle, which is why they picked up the game in the first place. So the true answer to why Clubhouse is such a loved map is because it's the map that people play Siege the most like how Siege is supposed to be played, with strategy, utility, planning, and skill, none of which are required for the next most hated map in Siege, which is Herford Base. Herford Base is not in Rainbow Six Siege right now. If you try to make a custom game on that map, it is not an option to do so anymore. The common theory is that it's being reworked for a second time after the events of the Assault on Hereford event, where Deimos destroyed the entire map in the lore. This is a great idea, and the only reason they're doing it is because even Ubisoft themselves know how hated this map truly is. It might be the only rework in Siege history that made a map significantly worse after the rework, but before this map was temporarily removed, it was a map that everyone dreaded. For one, just like with Tower, the map was just way too big. Unlike most other maps in the game, Hereford Base had 4 floors instead of the standard 2 or maybe 3. It also was hard to get into, as most of the entrances were either windows, site walls, or balconies that led directly into the objective. There's also the map aesthetic to take into account as well. There are a lot of maps that people like more than others purely because of the way they look, whether they realize that's the case or not. Coastline and Emerald Plains are great examples. These two maps, statistically and logically speaking, are pretty unbalanced maps where everyone just kind of runs and guns, but the aesthetic of the map almost makes it satisfying to do so. Think about it. If Coastline had the color palette of Hereford Base, has 0 pleasing things to look at. The sky is stormy and grim, the building is just one big cube, and the color palette of the building is just as boring as the sky above it. With this and the balancing in mind, it's clear to see why very few people like this map at all. Now, even though this map's unbalanced nature has earned it a lot of hate, this next map is just as unbalanced, but people love it for that same exact reason, and that is Bartlett University. If that name doesn't ring a bell, it's because you haven't been playing Siege for long enough. Bartlett University used to be a map in the game that got removed actually pretty recently. It used to be the first map that you would play a multiplayer match on after completing all of the situations, which at the time was Siege's version of the tutorial. After completing said tutorial, you'd play something called Article 5, which was like a terrorist hunt with multiple objectives and waves of terrorists. The best part was that it was multiplayer, and after completing this multiplayer mission, you could play the game normally, whether it be casual, standard, or ranked. You just had full access to the game. When you played normally, Bartlett University was still in the pool of maps to choose from even after you completed Article 5, so it's not like you'd only get to play the map once. Bartlett University is mainly loved for the same reason as House though. Its nostalgic nature, its aesthetic, and its rich game history because of Article 5. There are even hints of the map in today's version of the game, even though it's not in the game. When you walk into Bank, for example, and read the Bartlett University graduation letters that are all over what's known as Trump. If you didn't know, Bartlett University used to actually be a map in-game that they've since taken out, so it's cool to see a map like Bank shouting it out even though it's not in the game anymore. It's also the university that jynxzi, funny enough, said he graduated from in his Hinge profile. The love of the map really has nothing to do with the map itself, but everything that came with it. But what happens when the map has nothing but negativity associated with it? Enter the final most hated map in today's video, Stadium Bravo. This map, conceptually, is the exact same as Stadium Alpha. These maps were both made around the same time and were both just as unoriginal. Similarly to how Stadium Alpha was a recombination of 2 existing maps, so was Stadium Bravo. Instead of it being split floor by floor though, the map was split from north to south, with one slice of the map being the armory and workshop sites of Border, and with the bottom half being the VIP and kitchen sites of Coastline. It also unfortunately included the big indestructible glass that gave attackers a huge unfair advantage like in Stadium Alpha, but with this map it had a lot more, and in a lot less forgiving places. It was so bad in fact that Ubisoft actually removed some of it off of the map to rebalance it in the defenders' favor after people kept complaining about it. In terms of balancing, it wasn't actually that bad, but compared to most of the other maps in the ranked pool, this was by far everyone's least favorite and was banned in mostly every ranked game because of it. A map that a lot of people don't ban though is the final most loved map in today's video, which is Shalet. This map's love comes from a lot of places. It's very balanced, it doesn't play out like most other maps, and it's actually came a long way from where it used to be. What do I mean by this? Well, if you didn't know, Shalet used to be one of the worst maps in the game. Hands down. The Shalet we have now is actually a reworked version of itself. Before Operation Shadow Legacy, when the map was reworked, this map was a disaster for the defense. There were just way too many angles attackers got for free to stop you from being able to move around or flank. Every window and fireplace used to be open and you could rappel on it, kind of like how you can rappel on the lobby of Bank. The solar room that we have right now that connects the upstairs to Trophy used to not exist, so attackers could get onto the master balcony from spawn and have sight within a matter of seconds. There was also another staircase above West Main connecting kitchen to office, and there were even more windows than previously mentioned. Overall, it was a balancing disaster, which is why it's even more satisfying to play on now after it's been reworked, because it didn't just go from a bad map to an okay map like Cafe or Consulate. No, it went from one of the worst maps in the game to one of the best overnight. Some would argue even even top 2, but that's a conversation for another day. What's your favorite map though? Let me know in the comments what I missed, and watch this next video.